Hey guys, it's Folkroot. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. And if you're new, also subscribe. I'd love to have you here. But on today's video, I really wanted to touch on something different, something that most of you probably haven't heard of, which is kind of a tradition within American traditional folkloric witchcraft that I have personally developed for my own practice, and I've actually published a book on it that's available on Amazon, titled Mirewood Tradition by Leo Swiger. I usually go by Leo. But I really wanted to dive into that and do a little intro video just so you guys could see what that tradition is about. And yes, I am huddled up with a blanket in this like 100-degree weather because I keep this place severely cold. But let's get into it. So first of all, what is the Mirewood tradition? At its heart, it is deeply land-based. It is deeply connected to those areas like the wetlands, the swamps, those still waters like lakes. You could even practice, in like riverbanks and riverbeds and stuff, but definitely those areas of still water that you would find maybe like in the middle of the woods, or just common lakes. It could even be a really popular lake. Just getting to know the spirits there and honoring the spirits in that area and learning that land area that you're in. And even then that goes into, learning about those local plant spirits. What plants are available to you in your area? How can I work with these in my craft, in my practice? And also a big part of this is that it is deeply embedded that we find that bloom and rot is holy. We have, spring, summer, where we have things in bloom, but then when winter comes, usually things get wiped out, and thus decay and death kind of overshadows everything. So within that, we have that cycle that, in this tradition, that I find sacred, because it is a duality, and you cannot have one without the other. With death comes life, and with life comes death. Unless you're a vampire, I guess. But, that's a different story. At its heart, it is deeply rooted in folklore of the area you're in. Don't be afraid to adapt it to your area. You can adapt it however you want. I wrote the book and the tradition to be that way. I didn't want it limited to Indiana. I mean, I wrote it when I was in Florida, and I moved back to Indiana. And who's to say I won't move again? We never know. But it's definitely adaptable to the area you're in, so don't let that discourage you from getting dirty in the woods. You know what I mean? At its heart, its core beliefs is really animistic. Everything is alive. The rocks, the crystals, the trees, the land, the river, the lake, everything around you is alive. It has a spirit. It has a place in your practice. And getting to know those spirits in that area are definitely important. Like I said before, life and death, those cycles are sacred. In my opinion, it's kind of the same ideology of yin and yang. You can't have light without darkness, and you can't have darkness without light. With that cycle in this practice, which some might find controversial, we work with the devil in black, who kind of oversees those death cycles, and the devil in green, who oversees kind of like that rebirth, that greenery, that herbalism that we get into. And then we also have different types of spirits. Your ancestors are very important. Set up altars for them. Find out who they are. Remember that not all ancestors may be good. I think that's very important, and most people kind of overlook that. Since it is heavily spirit-based, working with land and water spirits is very important. Getting to know those plant spirits, building a relationship with them and your land. I cannot stress this enough. It is so important as part of the Mirewood tradition. So important. And by that, I mean get out of your house, either get in your car, walk, hitchhike. Just kidding, don't hitchhike. That's dangerous. But find an area where you can just sit with the plants, sit with the water, and just feel the energy going through you and feeling the presence of those spirits around you and just connecting with nature in general. That's really what, at heart, this is all about. And also honoring the hearth at home. So, yeah, I mean, it's essentially a very outside practice in getting dirty and getting into the mud and the water and the plants and kind of like literally dipping your feet into the water, putting your hands in the dirt. But also, hearth is sacred. There are hearth spirits all around you at home. Think about all these little things that live in your house, even if you don't know it. House centipedes, spiders. If you have pets, you have cats. If you have, the ashes of your pet, those still hold the energy and the spirit of your pet. Your hearth is, as a whole, treat it as it's living. Like, I don't know if you've all seen Howl's Moving Castle, or, obviously Baba Yaga's house, how it has legs. It's alive. You should treat your house with respect. You should open your heart and your mind and your body and soul to those spirits. And I think that's very important. And once you do that, I think you're going to find your home and your hearth is very much more connected to you, your practice, and self, and not just a place where you can just rest your head at nighttime. The land and the waters will listen if you listen back and you pay attention to them. You will start to feel their presence within you, and you'll start to feel those energies. To me, sometimes it feels just like hair standing up on the back of my neck, or I'll get like a ripple down my spine that I just know what it is. It's different for everybody, really. So I also wanted to go in and how this is a little different than other traditions as well. It's not rooted in Wicca. It's not rooted in dogma, really. Like, it's very adaptable to however you wanted to practice it. It's very malleable. Honestly, it's a no BS tradition. And what I mean by that is I wouldn't expect anyone that practices this tradition to just go out and buy a whole bunch of tools on the internet. You don't have to do that. You can simply just go out and make your tools from nature. Witchcraft, and especially this tradition, it doesn't have to be expensive. If you want to get those tools, I mean, that's fine. But try to opt in for like more natural, ingredients and fibers and stuff like that, like 100% cotton, or natural woods, like unprocessed natural woods. Find like twigs on the ground outside. And again, all that goes back to working with the land spirits. So I really can't stress that enough. And it's deeply rooted in yourself. So you're going to learn a lot about yourself, and I feel like since I've been, I've started up this tradition and I've been practicing it, that it definitely tries my patience sometimes, especially with, when I make like salves and oils and stuff like that, or I feel like it makes me think like, I actually got to put in this work, and it is so hard, and sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do it, but then I do it, and then I'm like so proud of myself. And then I just feel so connected to these plants and the land around me, which is awesome. And also, if you keep seeing me look to the side, I do have notes over here because I have the brain of a goldfish. I'm just letting you guys know. But anyway, we also find a lot of animals sacred. One of the big ones is toads. Toads are especially sacred in the Mirewood tradition. There are 4 toads that guard each of the 4 corners of the compass. So just how you would call like north, south, east, and west, you would call each toad to that compass. And each one kind of has its own associations and brings its own gifts or treasures to your practice. But we'll talk about those more in depth in another video, of course, but I wanted to, install that in your brain. We also have the Sabbats, of course, the wheel of the year, and working with those natural cycles of, life, death, rebirth, and those other celestial cycles. But I call them a few different things. So, for example, I have Ember Rest, Thawbind, Blackroot, Still Frost. Those are just a couple of them, and again, we'll go more into depth about those too. There's just definitely so much about this practice that if you go outside and listen to the land that's around you and you get rooted in this land and you learn the history of this land, and you don't need these fancy chalices and robes and everything else. Like, I don't have all that. I use a lot of clay in my practice. I think clay is great. It's earth-based, and it fits directly into this. Like, babes, we're going to go out at midnight under the full moon. We're going to make swamp oil and throw bones by the fire by the lake. Like, that's just what we do. But that also being said, like, all these plant spirits that we have in our area, I'm more than willing to show different books that I would suggest for, herbalism in general as a medicinal aspect, as well as herbalism from a witchcraft aspect as well. But, getting to know these plant spirits is overall very important. We're working with, rusty nails. We're the lantern bearers in this tradition. We're the light in the dark. We're bringing the lantern to the swamp. We're summoning spirits. We're working with the devil. We're crossing thresholds. There's just so much that goes into it, and in my book I even have a few different divination practices that I do for the Mirewood tradition, which I would also be willing to share in another video. But I just wanted to give you guys this introduction video and just introduce myself a little bit more and my tradition personally. And yeah, that's that. I hope to see you guys next time.